Hello everyone, and today we will be discussing about the Basel Accord. Yeah, today's topic is the Basel Accords, and many of you might be knowing about what purpose does this accord serve to the banking industries or the banking sectors. Mm, so now let's see why these Basel Accords were formed and what does this Basel Accord actually means. So these Basel Accords were actually formed in order to solve the banking problems which were actually facing by the banking sectors during 1980s or even during 1990s. So there was a committee, that is the BCBS, that is the Basel Committee on Bank Supervision. This committee was actually formed in 1974 in order to deal with the banking problems with the banking sectors or the industries were suffering at that or at those times. So this BCBS was actually formed by the member countries of the actually by the member countries of the different countries. So so that this will be whatever the issues the banking sectors were actually facing uh, will be solved by any rules or regulations this committee which were about to this committee were about to form the rules and regulations that they actually know that if there might be any of the rules which will guide the banking sector in future, it will give some stability in that particular field, in whether it is financially or maintaining any capital requirements. So this committee was actually formed to resolve those problems. So this committee actually formed the Basel 1, the Basel 2, and the Basel 3. So when this committee was formed back in 1974, they actually introduced Basel 1 in 1988, which focused on the first thing is that to maintain the minimum capital requirement, and like the objective of the first Basel 1 was to maintain the capital minimum capital requirement. The other two Basels, that is the Basel 2 and the Basel 3, also has their own objectives. So so now you might be knowing what purpose these Basel Accords usually provides to the banking sectors, to the banking industries. So you can see there are 3 points. That is the first thing, it's telling that it is set up by the Basel Committee on Bank Supervision, the series of banking regulations. Secondly, it actually provides the regulations specifically concerning the capital risk, market risk, and the operational risk. And the third point actually says that it actually ensures the financial institution must have enough capital on account to absorb unexpected losses. So these are the points mainly clears a little bit about what the Basel Accords are and what does this Basel Accords means. So let's move on into the other slide. See, every Basel, that is the Basel 1, the Basel 2, and the Basel 3, have their own different objectives which they usually provide. Uh, and what was the need of introducing Basel 2 and Basel 3? Yeah, because the Basel 1 objective was limited to only maintaining the capital requirements, the minimum capital requirements. So there are also other factors which has to be looked. So that's why the Basel 2 and the Basel 3 were introduced. So as you can see, what are the different objectives these Basel 1, Basel 2, and Basel 3 are performing. The Basel 1 usually focuses on the capital requirements for banks. The Basel 2 actually supervise and maintains the market discipline. Yeah, there are actually two more regulations introduced in the Basel 2, and we will be discussing about that thing later on in our coming slide. So, and what does the Basel 3 provides? Yeah, it actually provides and the aim was of this Basel 3 is to making the banking activities more capital intensive. So let's go and discuss each Basel, that is the Basel 1, Basel 2, and Basel 3, and what purpose does it serves to the banking sectors. So let's go on to the Basel 1. So the Basel 1, it actually got introduced in 1988, and the main objective, as we discussed earlier, was that the banking sector should have minimum capital maintained in the banks, so that if any losses they get in future, they will recover with the help of that minimum capitals that they have actually maintained. So basically this is the main objective of the Basel one, to maintain the enough capital in order to bear the risk in the future. So this minimum capital requirement was actually fixed at 8% of risk weighted assets. So now what is this risk weighted assets? So suppose let us take that suppose the bank has provided loan to some of its consumers, like to one consumer it has provided 1000, to the other 2000, and to the third party not, that is the third consumer, uh, 10,000. Suppose the bank who provided 10,000 to a particular consumer has not submitted or has not given any collateral asset to the banking sector, and in future if that particular third person actually doesn't pay back the loan amount, and yeah, it will become a debt, so that it will become a debt, and the third person that actually doesn't have that had not provided the bank with any asset. So in that case the bank will not able to recover those amounts. So so for that particular time the bank should have the minimum capital, so that it could recover those losses with those minimum capital. And suppose the bank who lended 1000 to a particular person, 2000 to a particular person, and they had given any asset as a collateral to the banking sector, um, whether those are the papers of a car or papers of the building, if the person doesn't uh, pay back the loan amount in future, so that the bank will be able to recover those amounts with the help of those assets. So so the risk, those are actually called the risk weighted assets, and on which the banks has fixed the rate at 8%. So now I think you are clear with the idea of RWA, that is the risk weighted asset. Mm. And one thing you might should know, that India and actually the Basel one was actually introduced in 1988, but India actually adopted the rules and regulations in 1999. And the other and in India actually the minimum capital requirement is referred as the capital adequacy ratio. Both of the term has the same meaning, but in other countries, in some of the countries it is referred as minimum capital requirement, and some countries it is referred as CAR, that is capital adequacy ratio. So in Basel 2, these rules and regulations were actually introduced in 2004, and you should know that this Basel 2 actually contains uh, the rules and regulations of Basel 1, as well as there are also two more rules and regulations introduced in this series, in this accord, that is in the Basel 2. So in the first regulations accept the earlier rules and regulations mm, released. The first one is the banking sector should develop a better risk management techniques. Yeah, the techniques should be better, so that they could handle those risk management. Sorry, they could handle those risks what they have uh, taken while providing loans to the consumers, like in case if the consumers were unable to pay back those loans, So in order to deal with those situations, the banking sector should have at least such techniques so that they could deal with these situations. And there should be increased disclosure. The banking sector should increase. There must be more transparent. The banking sector should be transparent about the risk factors what they're facing while while lending money to the consumers. You might be knowing about the NPA, that is the non-performing assets. So these non-performing assets are actually those assets which suppose a company provided loan to a company, and later on that company, due to some of the frauds or some of the different because of some of the cases, they are unable to pay back those loans to the banking sectors or to the banks from where they have actually taken the loans. So so those companies which are unable to pay back those loans becomes the non-performing assets at that moment. So at those times the banking sectors were not usually disclosing about these risk factors, but around 2000, from 2014 or 2013, uh, the disclosure by the banking sectors to its central bank, that is the, in case of India, that is the RBI, it has become more. Whatever the banking sectors are facing the risk, they are exposing it so that it will become easy by the central banks and as well as the group of banking sector to take major steps to actually they could deal with this situation. So in these regulations, it has been told to the banks that the disclosure should be maintained, the transparency should be maintained. And the second thing is that the banks need to mandatorily disclose the risk exposed to central bank. That is, I was talking before also that whatever risk the banks are facing, that should be disclosed to the central banks. Whatever countries like USA has its different central banks, India has different, like India has RBI. So whatever risk the banks are facing, that should be disclosed to its central bank. And after that the banks, that is the central bank, actually central bank of the country actually provides the biannual financial stability reports. These are the reports given by the RBI twice in a year, which describes about the annual financial stability what the country is going through. So these were all about the Basel 2. So now move on to the Basel 3. And before talking about the Basel 3, let's discuss about what caused the BCBS to introduce the Basel 3. Yeah, it was actually the 2008 global financial crisis. So let's discuss about that thing first. About that. Actually, there was a global financial crisis on 2008. Um, this is also called as the most serious financial crisis since the Greatest Depression of the 1930s. Actually, the world, the whole banking sector, the economic condition of the country, the whole world was actually unstabilized at that moment. Financially, there was literally a very great crisis going on 2008 due to the happenings or the situations developed by the banking sector on around 2006 or 2007. That actually, you know that in those years, that is in between 2006 and 2007, uh, there were the particular banking sectors who were providing loans on credit on numerously, like they were providing loans frequently, and due to this the bank were unable to recover those amounts, and which actually resulted in the global financial crisis. And it also affected the Asian markets like China, Hong Kong, Japan, and India. Yeah, India was also one country which got affected by this financial crisis. There are actually the certain causes which actually mm, because of those causes only in the 2008 financial crisis were evolved, and why actually this happened. So let us see why it actually happened. So what are the causes of 2008 financial crisis? So the first causes, as you can see, is the bursting out of the US housing bubble. So what is this US housing bubble? Actually, this is a firm related to the real estate business. So in 2006 and 7, there were huge amount of lands or housing property by the consumers for certain area. So because of that, there were there were rise in amount of housing prices because of certain demand of those land and those land and the housing properties. So eventually this gave rise to more purchase of lands and housing properties, and due to this the banking system, actually the banking industry started mm, giving the consumers uh, huge amount of loans on credit, and this resulted in future that there was so much amount of people who have taken loan to buy or to purchase those properties, and they were unable to recover, and later on it was found out that the banks were unable to recover those amounts. So this the US housing bubble, that is which peaked in 2006 and 7, was also reason which caused the 2008 financial crisis. And the other reasons, like the US banking sectors or the industries were providing loans to the consumers frequently, even it was cheap, like it was easily cheaply it was available there, so that anybody could get loan from a bank. So is due to the easy availability of the credit in the US, the 2008 financial crisis was also caused, and also you are also familiar with the things that the banks usually do, that they doesn't take the risk management techniques, and because of that only too much of risk taking, mm, the crisis also results. And like the key policy makers were ill prepared for the crisis and lacking a full understanding of the finance system, they oversaw. Yeah, in this point, you can see that the policy makers usually were not even prepared for the future. See, there are certain types of policy makers who usually have a backup plan for the future things. So whatever happens in the future, so like whatever risk they went through, or whatever problems the banking sector went through, they should have at least a backup plan in order to deal with that. So in this 2008 financial crisis, there were certain the policy makers usually they were not prepared for such situations. So this also resulted, and this financial crisis were not handled at that moment. So now let's talk about the Basel III, when it actually got introduced and why it got introduced. Actually, in response to the financial crisis in 2008, like we earlier discussed in our uh, earlier slides about the financial crisis which happened in 2008. So, with response to that crisis in 2010, this Basel III was actually introduced. So, what are the objectives of this Basel III? So, it actually focuses on making the most banking activities more capital intensive. Um, so now the banking sectors, this BCBS has told about the regulations in the Basel III about is that there must be maintenance of the more capital intensive, that is in Basel II it was fixed at around 2.5 something, that is the capital equity ratio, but in the Basel III it has increased from 2 capital equity ratio from 2 point around 5% to 4% around. So this has been done to increase the capital intensive. So the other point, like it it regulates the Basel III regulates is that the banking system should be resilient, that it should be strong in response to the 2008 financial crisis. The banking system should maintain itself that in future if they come across with such financial crisis again, they will be ready for that thing also. So for this, they have actually maintained the four parameters like there should be more capital require maintenance, leverages, funding, and liquidity. And if you're talking about the funding and liquidity should be maintained in the form of gold or in the form of cash. Yeah, there is, about the SLR, that is the statutory liquidity ratio, which is fixed at around 20% now currently, which actually says that the banking sector should maintain the liquidity ratio at around 20% in the form of either its gold or in the form of cash. So if the banks faces any problem in future, they will be ready to convert any amount in cash immediately. So this liquidity rate should be maintained. So if you're talking about India, this has been extended because the last date was the deadline to follow these regulations were in 2019 March. But now, in order to meet all the requirements under Basel III, they have actually extended the deadline to March 2020. So in this graph, you can see the TED spread, that is in the red color. It actually tells about the credit risk for this different years. Like in 2006, it was low, below, that is 2007. It again rised. Then in 2008, when the world was suffering from the global financial crisis, at that time the credit risk was high. So even the trade spreads, that is, it also tells about that due to the excessive credit, mm, like the consumers were actually provided, it actually helped in the financial crisis. So all these were about the Basels and their regulations, which will help the banking sectors. So I hope you would have understand. So thank you.